Okay, so today I'm going to be telling 10 short, scary horror stories. Okay, so let's get on with this one. This one is called This New Old House. We bought an old house, my boyfriend and I. We were in charge of new construction, converting the kitchen into the master bedroom, for instance. While I'm on the wallpaper removal duty, the previous owner prepared every wall and ceiling. Removing it was brutal but oddly satisfying. The best feeling is getting a long peel similar to your skin and peeling it off like a sunburn. I don't know about you, but I kind of make it a game of feeling on the hunt of the longest piece before it rips. Under the corner section of paper in every room is a person's name and date. Curiosity got me. One night when I googled one of the names and discovered the person was actually a missing person. The missing dates matched the dates under the wallpaper. The next day I made a list of all the names and dates. Sure enough, each name was a missing person with dates to match. We notified the police who naturally sent out a crime scene team. The overhead one text says, "Yep, it's human." Human? What's human? Ma'am, where is the material you moved the wall from already? This isn't wallpaper you're moving. That's so creepy. Imagine taking wallpaper home and then realizing it's like human skin, which I don't understand. I had wallpaper in my old house, so I knew how to take the wallpaper off and stuff. But wallpaper has a distinct feeling. It's hard and nasty. How can you tell from human skin onto a wallpaper? That just seems it's very weird. I don't know how she would be able to tell. Okay, so the next one we're gonna read is Guardians. He woke up to a huge insect-like creature over his bed and screamed his lungs out. They left the room and stayed up all night shakingly wondering if it had been a dream. The next morning there was a trap on the door. Gathering his courage, he opened it to see one of them gently placed a plate filled with fried breakfast on the floor, then retreated to a safe distance. He accepted the gift. The creatures chattered excitedly. This happened every day for weeks. At first he was worried they were fattening him up, but after a particularly greasy breakfast left him clenching his chest with heartburn, they were replaced with fresh fruit. As well as cooking, they prepared hot steamy baths for him and then tucked him in when he was in bed. It was bizarre. One night he woke up to gunshots and screaming. He raced downstairs to find a burglar being decured by the insects. He was sickening. By disposal of the remains as best as he could. He knew they just had to be protecting him. One morning the creatures wouldn't let him out of his room. He lay down confused but trusting as they rushed him back into bed. However, their movements, they weren't going to hurt him. Hours later, a burning pain spread throughout his body. It happened like his stomach was filled with razor blades. The insects chattered as he spasmed and moaned. It was only when he felt a terrible swarming and feeling beneath his skin that he realized the insects haven't been protecting him. They had been protecting their young. That is so creepy. If you guys ever the hospital stories, if you've ever seen any of the hospital stories, how when you have a worm inside of you, you can see the worm moving inside of you. That is so creepy. I can just imagine all the worms and insects going inside of him. That is so creepy. I could not do that. If I had this, it would be so bad. Okay, the next story we're going to read is Seeing Red. Everyone loved the first day of school, right? New Year's, new classes, new friends. It's a day of potential and hope. Before all the depression of reality catches up to ruin the fun. I like the first day of school for a different reason, though. You see, I have a sort of power. When I look at people, I can sort of see an aroma around them. A colored out based on how long this person has to live. Most everybody I met around my age is surrounding with a solid green aura, which means they have plenty of time left. A few amount of them have yellow oranges auras around them, which tends to mean a car crash or something tragedy. Other times that tasks people before their time, as they say. The real fun is when the aura ventures into the red end of the spectrum, which every now and then I'll see someone who's basically a walking stoplight. Those also are the ones who get murdered or kill themselves. It's also a rush to see them and know their time is numbered. Which that in mind, I always get to class very easy so I can scout out my classmates' future. The first kid who walks in is basically red. I chuckle to myself, too damn bad, bro. But as people kept walking in at the same time, they had intense glow. I also caught a glimpse of a rosy tint reflection in the window, but I was too stunned to move. Our professor stepped in and locked the door, his aura a sickening shade of green. That is so creepy. Imagine, like, if you had, like, what he had, basically, where you could just see when people are about to die or something kind of like that. So Raven, where she can, like, see the future and she can see, like, when people are about to die. I would absolutely hate that. I would never leave my room. Okay, the next one we're going to do is my daughter learned to count. My daughter woke up around 11:50 last night. My wife and I picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, bringing her home and putting her in bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the games. Daddy, she whispered, tugging my shirt sleeve, guess how old I'm going to be next month? I don't know, beautiful, as I said as I slipped into my glass. How old? She smiled and held up 4 fingers. It's 7:30 now. My wife and I have been up for almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell us where she got them. That's so creepy. Oh my gosh. I could not imagine if that happened to me. I would freak out. Literally freak out. Timeskeeper. He had been given the watch of his 10th birthday. It was an ordinary globe plastic wrist watch, in which aspect except for the fact that it was counting down. This is all of the time you have left in the world, son. Use it wisely. And indeed he did. As he watched the clock click away, the boy, now a man, lived life to the fullest. He climbed mountains, he swam seas, he talked, laughed, lived, and loved. The man who had never been afraid, he knew exactly how much time he had left. Eventually, as its clock began its final countdown, the old man stood looking over everything he has done, everything he had built. 5. He shook his hand for his old business partner, the man who had long been his friend. 4. His dog came and licked his hand, earning a pat on the head for his compassion. 3. He hugged his son, knowing that he had been a good father. 2. He kissed his wife on the forehead one last time. 1. The old man smiled and closed his eyes. Then, nothing happened. The watch beeped once and turned off. The man stood there, very much alive. He would think that in the moment he would have been overjoyed. Instead, for the first time in his life, the man was scared. That's kind of like, I forget what show it is. It came out a couple years ago, but they had like the little watch. It wasn't like a watch, it was like engraved into their skin, and they like had time that they could live and they could share time with each other, stuff like that. It exactly sounds like that, but that would be so scary to know the moment you're going to die, like how you're going to die in the moment you're going to die. Like that would be like the most creepiest thing in the whole entire world. I would not be able to know when or how I'm going to die. There is no reason to be afraid. When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived for a while in a charming old farmhouse. We lived exploring its dusty corners and climbing the apple tree in the backyard. But our favorite thing was a ghost. We would call her Mother because she seemed so kind and nurturing. Some morning, Bessie and I would wake up, and on each of our nightstands we would find a cup that hasn't been there from the night before. Mother had left them there, worried we would get thirsty during the night. She just wanted to take care of us. Along the house, original furnishing was an antique wooden chair. which we kept against the back of the wall of the living room. However, we were preoccupied watching TV or playing games. Mother would inch the chair forward across the room towards us. Sometimes she managed to move it all the way into the center of the room. We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us. Years later, long after we moved out, I found an old newspaper article about the farmhouse's originally occupant. A widow. She murdered her 2 children by giving them a cup of poisoned milk before bed. Then she hung herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse living room. When a woman's body hanging from the beam beneath her knocked over was an old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room. I wonder if the girl wasn't trying to be so nice and was trying to poison them like she did her other kids and then kill herself again. Because, once you kill yourself, if you kill yourself in a dramatic way, usually your spirit stays there. So it's very weird. Hell. There is no pearly gates. The only reason I know I was in a cave was because I had just passed the entrance. The rock wall rose beneath me with no ceilings in sight. I knew this was it. This was the religion talked about. What men feared. I had just entered the gate of hell. I felt the presence of the cave as if it was a living, breathing creature. The smell of rotting flesh overwhelmed me. When there was the voice, it came from inside me and all around. Welcome, who are you? I asked, trying to keep my composure. You know, the thing answered. I did know. You are the devil. I quickly lost my composure. Why me? I've lived as good as I could. The silence took over me. The space of my words died out. It seemed like an hour went by before the response came. What do you expect? The voice was patient. I don't know. I never believed any of this, I uttered. This is why I'm here. I continued. They say the greatest trick you have ever pulled was convincing the world you don't exist. No, the greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing the world that there was an alternate. There is no God, I shivered. The cage trembled with words, I am God. That's kind of weird. I don't really. He stood against my window. I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, I saw him there. He stood against my window, his forehead frightened against the glass, and his eyes were still in light. Stick red cartoonish grin. And he just stood there in the window. My wife was upstairs sleeping. My son was in his crib. I couldn't move. I froze and watched him looking past me through the glass. Oh, please no. He smiled, never moved, but he put a hand up and slid down the glass, watching me. With matted hair and yellow skin and face through the window, I couldn't do anything. I stayed there still, feet still into the bushes. I was pounding, looking into my house. He stood against the window. That's so creepy. I can't imagine somebody, going by my house or, standing at my window just trying to scare me or anything like that. That is literally the creepiest thing. My biggest fear is somebody breaking into my house. Biggest fear. The happiest day of my life. I watched his soon-to-be father-in-law hold his daughter's hand as he walked up the aisle. Tears streamed down his face as the wedding march, the play in the background reminded him that in a few moments he would be watching me hold his daughter's hand and slipping on her ring. He walked up to the altar and I took hold of her hand, grinning from ear to ear. It was the happiest day of my life. My bride's father got down on his knees and started begging, "Please, I did what you asked. Just please give me my daughter back." I glared at him. "Shut up and stop ruining the moment. If you sit back down and enjoy the ceremony, maybe I'll tell you where I hid the rest of her body." That is so creepy. Oh my god, that's so creepy. What the heck? "Hidden. Where are you?" I screamed. Panic, I ran through the abandoned farm. I can't find her. Not in the old house, not in the barn. I ran to the empty field, heart racing as I scanned the area. I ran into the mound of dirt, tripped, sprawling onto the ground. Getting up, it hits me. Abandoned farm? I tripped over freshly tiled earth. Crouching down, I sat frantically, crawling into my hands, scooping handfuls of dirt. I hit something hard. Wood. Are you there? I cried, pressing my ears to the wood. I heard muffled cry. I kept digging again, but I realized it was taking too long. Looking around, I saw a garden shed. I sprinted to it, ripping the door open. I see a shovel, still covered in dirt. Probably the same one the bastard buried her with. I grabbed it. Running back, I started digging with purpose. Saw the wooden box is exposed. I tossed the shovel and ripped open the crate. She stares back at me, eyes wide, gagging, but alive. I sighed with relief. Thank God. I reached into my bag, pulling out my rag and chloroform. I crouched down, placing it over her face. She struggles, faint. I toss her over my shoulders. Oh hell, my brother says as I walk into the trunk with a smirk. You found her. Yep, you almost had me though, I laughed. All right, my turn. Where did you put her? I gestured to the creek area. Somewhere over there. Drowning. An issue though. Jerk, he says. Running off, I smiled, watching him go. I love adult hide and seek. That is so weird and so creepy and unbelievable that somebody would play hide and go seek with somebody's body and just do it over and over and over again. Think about how the woman or the man felt being hidden and then burned, like buried and then chloroformed and then hidden again. And no, the eyes are watching me. I bought a house in a small town. The house was cheap. The most important part was that I needed to get away from the city. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a stalker. While I had imagined to get him arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes were constantly watching me. I felt like the eyes were everywhere, at the home, on the street, so I decided to move out into the country to somewhere with less people just for peace of mind. The house itself was big and somewhat old, but otherwise very welcoming. The agent who introduced me to the house has been required to mention that a serial killer had lived there in the past, which was why the house was so cheap. However, he and later my next door neighbor Sarah both told me to pay the thought no mind. I could not live in a serial killer's old house. Obviously, that's probably still haunted. I would never do that. I don't understand why anybody would just put that on themselves. Four other owners had lived in the house since then, and all of them very, very happy with it. I loved the house. The interior was very beautiful and very comforting. The people were very friendly, over bringing our freshly baked pastries and inviting me over for dinner. Get-togethers, they said, were the keys to making sure everybody who lived there loved it there. Yet over a week I stopped loving it. The feeling of somebody watching me returned, worse than before. I tried to ignore it, but soon I kept losing sleep. Giant bags grew under my eyes. I began yawning, and almost as I breathed, Sarah was kind enough to let me stay at her house for a few nights. It was during this time that I heard the legend of Forrest, the serial killer who lived in my house, who no one knew exactly how many he killed. Carter, also known as the Peacock, which was the man who was extremely severe case of narcissism. Legends say that he couldn't fall asleep, and if he didn't feel like he was being watched, he was finally arrested, putting up scarecrows to watch him during the night. Only it wasn't a scarecrow. Carter had murdered a 17-year-old girl, just so her corpse could stare at her. The story gives me shivers, and after I went home, I felt like there was thousands of hundreds of eyes on me watching me, no matter how I turned. Today, however, was the first day that I acted out. I was cooking breakfast when I felt the eyes. Out of fear, I threw my kitchen knife, which lodged itself into the wall. As I pulled it out, I found myself staring at a pair of eyes. I've been watching the police peel away the drywall of my house for hours now. So far, they have found 142 pairs of eyes in small jars. The scary thing is, each and every one was staring at me. That is literally the creepiest thing I've ever heard. And Forrest Carter, let me know if you guys want me to do like a whole video on him and what he did and everything. If he's obviously, I'll look up the legend of Forrest Carter, see who it actually is, everything like that. And I will make a whole video on him because that is literally the creepiest thing ever. Okay. The enemy. I flung myself through the doors and vaulted the top long dead refrigerator that had several barricades in front of me. My legs I threw the brave ones. Here they come again, the brave ones. Another Halloween night. The kids are back, here to prove they're fearless. The old house's floorboard creaks beneath their sneakers. Only a half an hour until midnight, so I had to work fast. I started with their flashlights, blowing against it so that it would flicker. But this inspired so much more than a nervous giggle. 15 minutes later until midnight, my every nerve is on fire. I hover around the ceiling, and with my body flesh. But they given me no choice. I forced dropped of blood to trickle out of my nose, but the boy below me didn't notice. I knocked against the ceiling, but they won't even look up. I thought this place was supposed to be haunted, said later. What a joke. 5 minutes until midnight. I'm running out of time. With the last of my strength, I screamed so loud that they finally look up and turn to me. I like to think I put on a good show. The blood freely from my nostrils now, a couple of drops hitting a skinny one with a cruel cut. The boy screamed and ran into the night. Just in time, below me, I heard the thing turn. It's a disappointment, for now it sleeps. But one day, I will fail. The boys will be too brave, and I won't be able to scare them. One day, they will wake it. That's really creepy, too. Nap in the car. Mommy always leaves me and Daddy home on Saturday nights. Me and Daddy always goes to get ice cream in the car after dinner. I have to sit in the back seat until I'm a big boy. I go to the kitchen and see what Daddy's cooking for dinner. But my Barney movie is over. But he's still not in there this time. I saw a note on the counter that says, Mommy and Uncle James were going somewhere together. I'm not sure. I don't read that good. I go find Daddy in the garage. I shut the door behind me like I'm supposed to. Daddy's in the car. He already has the car turned on. He must not be eating dinner tonight, only ice cream. I sit in the back seat behind Daddy, since I'm not a big boy yet. Daddy doesn't say anything when I say hello to him. Maybe he can't hear me over the loud car. I think I'll take a nap on the way to ice cream. I feel kind of sleepy. That's so disgusting. Like, okay, yeah, that's disgusting to kill yourself. Like, don't kill yourself, period. But don't kill yourself when you have a child literally in the house. Like, what's gonna happen to the child? Like, I was just listening to this podcast where it was like the mom got kidnapped and the kidnappers left a 18-month-old kid in the house by itself, and the dad didn't get home until 5 o'clock, and the mom literally got kidnapped early in the morning at 8 o'clock. Like, how sick are you to leave a little child by itself, not knowing who's gonna be there, when time the next parent's gonna come home, who can help them? They can't feed themselves. They can't do anything for themselves. Like, you're leaving a little child by themselves. Okay, but on that note, I think I'm done for today. Let me know if you wanted me to do about the serial killer. I have another video coming out that's going to be about another serial killer. Don't want to give any two hints. It might be 2 parts because so far when I'm writing it, it's very, very, very long. Okay, bye guys.